day 11 of continuously uploading till I opened up my retail shop, comic book retail shop that is. And one of the things that I decided to do, something I decided while looking at a group of deers eating in my front yard, was that I need to start frequenting bookstores, comic book shops, cafes, things like that, and really dissecting what I like about them and what I don't like. And so today I had 20 bucks on me and I said, fuck it, let's fucking go. And we hit the road. But first things first, my wife wants to stop at a nursery, so we shopped around for some plants and stuff like that. So after the nursery, we ended up going to Barnes & Nobles. And to begin with, Barnes & Nobles has manga on top of manga on top of manga on top of manga on top of manga. And then you have just one section of comic books, which kills me. One of the main things though that I saw that I really liked was the way they break down the content that they're sharing, right? So instead of it being Marvel or DC, this Barnes & Nobles had it where it was like horror comics, action comics. And for me, that made more sense because that whole Marvel versus DC thing is something that is childish and comical, really, in the end of the day. But for most comic readers, I think we just want a good story. But there's a certain genre that people like. Like, there's really good sci-fi that came from DC, as well as Marvel, as well as Charlatan Comics, as well as, you know, Valiant and other Dynamite Studios. And there's so many titles that are good that are sci-fi related, and I've gravitated to them because I like sci-fi, and vice versa. There's a lot of occult comics that I really like. You know, I would say that Alan Moore's Swamp Thing run definitely felt like horror and was very eerie. You know, and same thing like Demon from DC, but as well as Dr. Mirage from Valiant Comics is one that I like a lot, and I would group them together. You know what I mean? And that's regardless of the universe. So that's definitely one thing that was cemented in me on my Barnes & Noble's trip today, was like, when I do have the shop, I'm going to break it up by the genre. So like, you're going to have horror comics in one section, and that's going to be like Marvel Zombies right next to Alan Moore Swamp Thing. The other thing that I saw that I liked a lot was the idea of also including like periodicals, right? So like journals and things like that, but not necessarily like, I'm not going to carry News Weekly and like Entertainment Weekly and stuff like that, but like, there's so many magazines and other print matter that are comic book related, cinema related, or just like I said, like nerd culture kind of related, or creative concept creative, right? Like there's magazines about writing, about drawing, all that stuff. And that's something that I also need to implement into my shop. It's something that I buy a lot of magazines. I still buy a lot of printed matter. Like I buy Thrasher, I still buy a lot of business journals, trade journals as well. I've gotten into as of recently. Publisher Weekly is something that I'm not sure how many folks are familiar with, but if you're into publishing, it makes sense because they give you a lot of relevant information as it relates to publishing, the publishing industry. And sometimes there's about comic books, mangas, and all that stuff, but a lot of times it's more of a general consensus of what's going on in the industry, and it's something that I think is very valuable for anybody. With those 20 bucks, what did I end up getting? Boom, Wonder Woman. It's a pretty big book for only 10 bucks. I thought that was a damn deal. And it's funny because I also picked this up maybe a little week ago or something. This was only 12 bucks. So there's something about Marvel and DC right now kind of putting out these pretty big compendiums at a reasonable price, which I think is a good thing. Why not? But I picked this up more because of the writer. I'm not that big of a Wonder Woman fan, but I definitely love this writer. It's one of those things that if a certain writer is doing it, I will take the chance and read his interpretation of that character. And it's Grant Morrison, who famously did Animal Man, Doom Patrol, but for me personally, more famously did a bunch of Judge Dredd comics, and I'm a big Judge Dredd fan. And so definitely willing to give it a shot, and for that price, absolutely more than happy to delve into the world of Wonder Woman for a good weekend or two. But also while I was at Barnes & Noble, I started thinking about how there's so many intersections when it comes to comic books, right? Because you think about like comic book as a business, as an industry. It made me think of all these books that I should be getting that relate to the comic book history as well as the aspect of business. And it made me think of one that I've had on my to-read list but just haven't read it. It's called Comic Shop, The Retail Mavericks Who Gave Us a New Geek Culture. And like I said, I have it as a PDF download, and it makes sense for me to go ahead and take the time to read it just so I can know kind of the history of the comic book retail spaces, especially since that's the plan, 365 days to open up my own retail space. But that's all I got for you guys today, man. Go ahead, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget there will be a link in the show notes that will take you to feralpublication.com, where you get some of the cool underground humor comics that I make, that other people have contributed to the project as well. Go ahead and put it in the show notes what kind of books, comics you guys think I should be collecting for that library, for that comic retail space that we're going to have sooner than later. Let me know in the comments. Alright, you guys, thanks so much for watching. Lates.